Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome. I've witnessed firsthand how critical market design can be to the success of the energy transition. Early in my career, I was working with the Argentine Energy Ministry with my Congress in Buenos Aires as they launched the Renovar program, a series of renewable energy auctions designed to attract international investment into the market that frankly had a terrible record on sovereign risk. Argentina was not the obvious place to build large-scale wind or solar, but the program was well designed, transparent auctions with bankable contracts, World Bank guarantee, and it worked. Billions of dollars of investment flowed in and projects were built, and Argentina demonstrated something important, that good institutional design can unlock investment even in the most difficult of markets. Compare that with other auctions that I've seen where the contracts were not bankable, where the regulatory frameworks changed mid-project, where the grid connections were promised but never delivered. The same technology, it's the same economics, but completely different outcomes. The hardware is cheap, but the system is not. There is a central argument for this video that the binding constraints on the energy transition are not technical, not technological. They're institutional, they're financial and political. And the technologies largely work everywhere. But the question is whether can we develop the institutions that can deploy them at speed and at scale. So let me give you some numbers. So global investment in energy transition technologies exceeded $1 trillion in 2024. Sounds like a big number, but the IEA estimates that the annual investment needs to reach about $3 to $4 trillion per annum by 2030 to stay on a trajectory that's consistent with meaningful electrification. And that's just in the generation and storage side. It doesn't include grid infrastructure, the manufacturing capacity, or the institutional capability that needs to be built alongside it. Now, here's the thing with investment at this scale. It does not come from governments alone. It comes predominantly from private capital, from pension funds, from infrastructure funds, project finance banks, corporate balance sheets, and private capital requires one thing above all else: predictability. Not subsidies, predictability. A wind farm in West Texas might have better wind resources than one in Shandong province in China. The turbines might be the same, but the Chinese project sits within a system where grid connection is coordinated with generation build out, where storage deployment is mandated alongside the renewables capacity, and where the permitting timeline is measured in months, not years. The West Texas project might face a 5-year grid connection queue, uncertain federal tax credits, and a patchwork of state level regulations. It's the same technology, same wind blowing, but completely different investment risks. So, what does good policy actually look like? Because this is where the debate usually collapses into ideology and free market this and versus state intervention that and subsidy versus no subsidy. And I think the answer is really practical. The best energy transitions that I've seen share certain features: long-term revenue visibility for investors, coordinated planning between generation, grid, storage, a stable regulatory framework that does not change with every election cycle, and market mechanisms that reward system integration rather than just capacity addition. The German feed-in tariffs, with all of their costs, created the demand signal that drove the first generation of solar manufacturing at scale. China's coordinated approach, where they coordinated generation, grid, storage, manufacturing, were planned as a system, and they delivered this second generation of cost reductions. The UK contracts for difference mechanism is a great example as well, and it produced some of the cheapest offshore wind in the world. What all of these have in common is that they treated investment in electrification as infrastructure, not as an expense. They gave investors confidence that the revenue would be there for the lifetime of the asset. They priced electrification as capital deepening, the substitution of volatile operating costs for upfront investment that locks in low, predictable costs for decades. And what does bad policy look like? It looks like stop-start subsidy regimes that create boom-bust cycles. It looks like grid connection queues that add years and billions to project costs. It looks like permitting processes designed for a world of large centralized power stations being applied to distributed renewable energy systems. It looks like politicians who announce gigawatt targets but do not invest in the institutional capacity to deliver them. One counter bureaucracy, we used to call it. So capital follows execution capability, not targets. Markets that demonstrate institutional alignment, coordinated permitting, grid investment, and financing mechanisms that deliver superior risk-adjusted returns, regardless of the subsidy levels. So political commitment is manifests in system design, not rhetoric. So to recap from my experience, investment grade policy is really key to building new energy transition infrastructure. Proving or ripening new technology and making a real commercial product at scale requires a completely different set of policy supports from deploying proven technologies. And the recent boom and failure of clean hydrogen policy that we've seen in Europe and the US, a real classic case of trying to apply policy, scaling policies to unripe technologies. The hardware got cheap, the system did not. So fixing the system, the institutions, the markets, the grid, the permitting, the finance is where the real work lies. If you want to go deeper on this, the full argument is in my book, Electrostate. The link's in the description. If you're a senior executive who needs ongoing intelligence on the electrical energy transition, then check out our services at electrostate.com. Thanks for listening.